Should I introduce, or should you do it, straight cis male?
I don't know who we are on with.
Oh, it's
I'm
myself.
Okay, so what is
Yeah.
your opinion on the EU?
I think they use basically a force of good for each individual country that is within the EU. Obviously, there are some flaws, but overall, I think it's a force of good.
Yeah, I would go ahead and disagree with that and say that it's not a force of good, because I think that you're just sacrificing more than you are gaining.
Hmm?
You
In
want
what
me?
aspect? Yeah, I want you to
Oh yeah,
go
I
ahead
can.
on that.
I go on.
What you mean by that?
I would say that the European Union's current situation doesn't benefit each individual in ways that I feel it's worth it. I believe that we just allowing countries to take in immigration from and the other countries are deciding what we should take, if that's the case. And if other countries have control of your legislation, you are not going to be free to, and therefore I don't think that's good.
Okay, let me break down the legislation thing. You do know each country and each parliament has a decision in whether the legislation gets passed. It's not like there's just other countries that you've no idea what they're doing are just passing legislation you've not no idea about. The EU Parliament, which are the Parliament is made up of representatives that people elect in their own individual country, and the heads of each state have to vote on a certain piece of legislation to get passed. And before that legislation is even passed, it is sent to each national parliament 8 weeks before it is even put up for a vote to see if the national parliaments would like to modify anything with it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay, what is the downsides either of you guys think of the Brexit?
I believe that the Brexit. No, who should continue?
You go ahead, dude. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I believe that the Brexit. I don't really think that Brexit. I think the Brexit was a great idea, because I don't think that the UK should be part of the European Union if they don't want to. I'd love to exit the European Union myself, but I'm not. I'm still on it, and I'm not. But I'm going to leave it to go to a place where I have more rights in the European Union instead.
And,
No, more rights
Willie,
than I have.
Where do you live now?
Oh, I'm living overseas. I'm living in the European Union. I don't really want to be so specific about that.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think a lot of people say about the EU is factually incorrect, and this whole sovereignty argument is kind of stupid, because in order for something to be passed, the representatives of each country have to agree to it. And there's 28 countries within the EU, and if 4 of them don't agree, if 4 countries within the EU Council disagree on a certain legislation, it doesn't get passed. All it takes is 4.
Okay, 4 representative national officials in the European Union Parliament.
No, in the Council, which is the heads of state of each country.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. And the council, is the council democratically elected?
Yeah, because it's the heads of state of each country.
Okay, I just wanted to understand more what I was going into, and I would go ahead and say that the elect a representative of the European Union and doesn't have any legislative power to pass the laws.
Yes, it does. Dude, you're factually wrong in this. Dude, the EU Council and the Parliament both have to agree to pass a law, or it doesn't get passed. And these are the 2 things that people elect.
Yeah, okay. Then if I don't have any way to disprove that, so I can go with that point, and that's fine. But my problem is this: then if I know that I'm just going from my own perspective, that the European Union doesn't want gay male couples to have their own biological children, and I really want to do that. And there are forces within the European Union, both feminist forces and Christian forces, who are seeking to prevent that from happening. and that's why I'm going to move. And the European Union's current position are making it difficult for each country to pass legislation that will help progress that, so that I could have the right to have children.
I'm not completely sure on that, but I know the EU did basically said to Ireland that they had to have a vote on gay marriage in Ireland to make it legal. So I mean, they're not completely against like gay people or whatever, because they wanted Ireland to push a legislation that allowed gay people to get married in Ireland. And that was
So
then
they're still. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Dude.
I was going to ask. So it's still gay marriage is still illegal in Ireland?
No, it's legal because the EU asked the Irish government to put a vote towards it, and the people voted yes, it's okay for gay people to get married. So yeah,
I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
The problem I see with this isn't that about gay marriage, because that's like something that people are trying to stand for gay rights, but they really don't just throw out there, because I usually say that marriage is pointless unless you can have children. And what I was arguing, I agree with you that it's good that they pushed Ireland to have a vote on gay marriage. That's good. I agree with you 100% there. But what I was talking about was gay reproduction. And the most voices in the European Union are currently usually opposed to gay reproduction. So therefore, I believe that the European Union could very well be a hindrance for countries to push gay reproduction.
I don't know enough on it to comment, because I guess to me the other issues that are facing the EU, that's not one that would be top of my list of priorities, I guess.
Yeah, but the reason why that's really much my list of priorities, because that's the most important thing for me right now. No, most important thing for me in general. And if we have like a multitude of countries of feminists and Christians who are importing people from the Middle East to share their position on this issue, then we couldn't do progress, because the European Union would be able to pass ban on surrogacy, so that gay men cannot have their own biological children, which I really want to. And therefore I'm really frightened about this union. I don't think it's worth it.
Well, to me, like, surely making Ireland have this vote is a step in the right direction towards this, because surely that's just going to make, so like I don't see how the EU could just be totally against it if they're making Ireland have this vote on gay marriage, which then would be a step in the direction of gay surrogacy.
Yeah, I know, but we can always see that other countries like France and Italy, I don't really know how gay marriage looks like in Italy, and I think it's legal in Spain. It's legal in Spain and Sweden, and I think you can have in Finland. There is you can have registered partnership. So basically married, but not really called married. And
so partnership,
yeah, all these countries were like very pro that, but they are very much against gay reproduction, because they say that was like exploitation or something. So they seek to ban EU citizens and their own citizens to have that. And they are basically feminists, and other people in the European Union are seeking to strengthen together in order to seek a ban on that on the entire European Union. They like to have a plan and a model.
Is that the individual countries or the EU though doing that? Is it just countries that happen to be within the EU, or countries that or is it? I've literally seen nothing from the EU kind of promoting this.
Yeah, it's both.
Could you point me towards some EU legislation that would demonstrate this?
I'm just not any specific legislation they are actually trying to put. I know that there are many people within the European Parliament that are trying to achieve this.
Could you
prevent this from being?
Could you point me maybe to some quotes from a politician within the EU?
So what's against this? What is the context of the parent? Like, is it parental rights that they don't want, or adoption, or like getting
no, they don't want surrogacy.
They don't want surrogates and so on and so forth.
Yes, exactly, and I believe that the that parenthood is your own biological children. I don't want someone else's children. I just want
Okay.
mine.
I understand that. But as you were.
Okay. Yeah. So if we say like that's the case, I mean, like, you can't say that something else is more important for you, because I'm not going to condemn your entire opinion on this just because of this issue. But can we still go on and argue with that point that there are EU politicians that are trying to do this?
1 second, sorry. There was a conference on parenting options for gay European men. Please.
Conference on what?
On parenting for gay European men in 2017
Okay.
by the EU.
And there are powerful forces within the European Union who are opposed to gay surrogacy, which
the EU. This conference is giving advice to ethical. Dude, I think your position might be a bit. They seem to be giving financial options or ways of doing it within the EU.
wait. What?
That's in the European surrogacy laws. Okay. I'll have to look into that more. I don't know enough about it, to be honest.
Okay, but then we can say that this isn't a set in stone point. But
No.
sorry, but can we still? Sorry, I just got something in my throat. But can we still argue with the point that as there are forces within the European Union who seeks to ban gay surrogacy, even though I can't specifically prove it, can we still argue the point, like, if there are?
I don't think there's much point, since it doesn't say. I don't know enough about it, to be honest, and it's like you can't point me to any legislation or specific quotes or people that would demonstrate this to be true.
No. But could you argue, like, if I could, like, if you call it, if it was true, even though I can't prove it, like, let us just say that this is true just for the sake of the argument.
Oh, then I'd be against it. There you go. That's about it.
The entire European Union.
No, I wouldn't be against the entire European Union for that. I'd be just against that specific thing.
Yeah, and okay. Now we're getting, that's great. Now we're getting somewhere. So I guess that I am usually against the European Union because the risk of them doing something like that isn't worth it if I do to any net benefits.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know. I honestly don't know enough about it, like, this thing. So I don't really.
So just for the sake of argument, subjective. What do you see? What are the pros that what are the cons that you see in the EU?
Oh, I don't like the euro. I don't like the common currency. I think it's not
we can agree on
productive
that.
to each individual country with varying economies. That's something I don't like. I guess that'll be a major thing. But
generally, what is the pros that you see to the EU?
The only pros I see is that I could go to, like, another place of the European Union if this place is going to hell.
Okay.
But I usually say that hell can just follow you to the better place, because that's usually what happens. Free movement is, like, in my opinion, like a snake hole to terrorism and shit like that.
You do know the free movement thing isn't the immigration from the Middle East is nothing to do with, like, the free movement. Like, this mass.
But if Germany and Sweden are allowing massive amount of immigrants to their countries, and they are getting Swedish and German citizenship, then they have the same movement like any other person in the European Union.
Yeah, and if you've committed a federal crime, the country has any right to kick you out if you move, or if you're a burden on the tax system or the healthcare system, and you must have a job you must secure a job within 3 months of residence. So you can kind of kick.
Is that in all? That's not in all European countries.
That's in Ireland, which means any country could negotiate them terms. So that's not an EU problem. That's a parliamentary problem within each country.
Yeah, but you can see, you saw my previous position when I said that I didn't want to. Would you? Yeah, okay, then I get it. But therefore, the reason why, I mean, like, if someone is a European Union citizen, can they? How easy is that for those people to go from another country to one country?
Oh, it's relatively easy to move, but staying there is a different thing.
Yeah, but that's different for each country. So places like Ireland is way better than places like Sweden. I can understand.
Yeah, but then that's not really an EU problem. That's more a parliamentary problem that each country should take up with. You know, it's a problem.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, it's kind of similar to the United States, how we have every state has our own state laws and so on and so forth, but the federal government still makes their laws that we have to follow. It's similar to that?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but something I thought was a problem. Like, if we allow the European Union to push, would the European Union be able to put legislation to ban surrogacy in countries without the country's approval?
No, they couldn't.
But who exactly in the country would be able were to be the ones to approve it?
So sorry. If the EU wanted to push surrogacy against gay men,
ban it.
Yeah, they wanted to ban
European Union.
Yeah, but there was countries who wanted to keep it, okay, or have it or whatever.
I mean, like, Cyprus is the only one who have it, and the other countries doesn't have it either banned or doesn't have any legislation. I know that Ireland doesn't have any legislation, so if you are going to have kids, then you aren't protected. And the European Union could, for example, push Ireland to have a vote against it rather than having a vote for it, because many forces in the European Union are against it. So therefore,
and then it
could
comes
be
down
made
again
illegal.
to the individual country's choice.
Yeah, okay, but is there something? Can the European Union legislate a law for other countries? They need the other countries' approval, right?
They need the other country's approval. Yeah, they can't just push a law on the country.
Okay, but how many people in that country need their approval if they want to push a law to that country?
If they went up for a vote, whatever it is, the 51% of the population would have to vote against that, I guess, or the parliament would be like, no, people in our country aren't for this, so the parliament could change the bill, or you could have the EU Council, which is made up the heads of state, which would probably know that they're each country's public opinion on it, or you'd have the EU representatives that are in the parliament.
So, if you say that the European representative in the European Parliament, could they ban it?
Sorry, say that again.
Could the European Council in the Parliament ban it?
They would also need the Parliament's approval and the Council's, and possibly also the national parliaments as well.
So if the national parliament could just approve it without a vote in the country, if it was pushed by the European Union?
You would also need a vote by the EU Council and the EU Parliament. And if people were against it, I doubt those 3 different representatives would go against that, especially some social issue like that. They tend to only ignore people when it comes to economics.
But they try to, I mean, like, countries like Finland and Sweden and basically France and Spain, most of those countries banned it without a popular vote. They just banned it because the parliament banned it.
Banned what?
Surrogacy.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, that comes down then to the individual countries.
So is it impossible that the European Union said to the individual countries that they should ban it?
No, it's not possible, but I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. It would depend. Like, if was there much public outcry, or most people like, oh, that's okay, because it comes into democracy, I guess. Like,
yeah, but most people doesn't really care about that.
I'd have to look at the opinion polls on it, and I don't really think that'd be something the EU would be pushing for.
But if we argue that that is something that European Union are pushing for.
Sure. Yeah, that's a bad thing then. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's one of the main reasons that I am against it. And if they are pushing that, or if they don't, if they just let it be, and they don't have to impede progress or stop progress, but rather prevent progress, so that I have to travel overseas anyway, then a richer European Union country paying taxes to a more poor European Union country by someone who isn't allowed to reproduce in that country, regardless if that was a choice by the union or by the individual country, then I believe that that's wrong to force people to pay money to other countries if they're just trying to leave their own countries.
Yeah, sure. I don't see it. I thought this was a debate about the EU, but okay.
Yeah, but there is about the EU, because there's like a country like France and Sweden are like paying money to more to less wealthy countries in the union by their tax money, and I don't think that's right, because to pay into a system that I'm discriminating against, because I believe that they violate the non-aggression principle.
Can you say that again? Sorry, what violates the NAP?
That you have to pay for something that if you pay for someone's other country's child support, when you doesn't have the right to have your own children.
What
That's
other countries are you paying for? What other countries are you?
You are paying tax money through the European Union to less wealthy countries in the European Union.
Yeah, but that's not that mostly goes through investment of like infrastructure. It's not like benefits mostly. It goes through infrastructure, developing that economy.
Okay. If you say that, I believe that's good.
That is the case.
I know that no, it's not good. That's not as bad as I thought. But no. I don't really believe that the other countries' infrastructure. Okay.
That's what they're doing in Poland and stuff. Like they put it's basically an investment. Like you're investing in a country so that it develops. So it's a long-term investment because it's a country. It's going to take a long time to develop.
Yeah, but the problem is if I don't want to do in my country, or dependent if I want to leave it or not, because the lack of rights, and then I still have my tax money paid for another country who are building their infrastructure, and I don't believe that I don't want to fund that, because that's my money, and I don't think that I should go to something that doesn't benefit me at all. And I believe that is the violation of the non-aggression principle.
Like taxation isn't always like about what you agree with doing, kind of like. Sorry, go ahead, Sid. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Subjective. No, I was just going to ask. So, does the EU? You guys pay taxes to the EU?
It's not really like a direct tax. It's more so like you pay a certain amount to be in the free movement, but
okay.
And you also, I'd imagine, some of your budget goes towards maybe the EU. I'm not sure completely on the funding. I just know where it goes, or have a decent idea where it goes.
Yeah, but those funding that are usually financed by the budget of the individual countries, who are funded by tax money. That's what I consider the violation of the non-aggression principle, and that's why I'm against it, because if it doesn't really require me all the rights I need, so that I just want to get out of here, then that would be not in favor of me, because that's violent my non-aggression policies, because you're paying into a system that doesn't benefit you, that you just want to get out of, and that's a violation of the non-aggression principle.
I don't know if it does. I mean, I think this is something that each individual country kind of expected when joining a block of countries like this, and this was countries they were aware of when joining. This wasn't just randomly put upon them. So yeah, like this is something the country was expecting when they joined. I don't really care, I guess, because bullshit. Yeah.
And the reason why didn't want to join in the beginning was just because that costs you money, and if I want to get out of here because it doesn't push for me having more rights. It's either push for it's standing still, doesn't push at all, or push for me having less rights. And if I just want to get out of this system, then me financing this system violation of the non-aggression principle, and that's why I'm against the European Union, or at least against being in it.
You're against the European Union because a small percentage of your income tax, whatever tax, goes to funding some infrastructure in another country. Okay.
Yeah, and the free movement is something that I consider to be a liability.
Why?
If you think about the way that I want to go to another country, and if they are pushing legislation against me having more rights, it's pushing legislation for me having less rights, and not an ever. That is a force in the European Union that I'm afraid of, and that is why I'm against it, because that pushing force is like opposing me having more rights, and they can use that in order to highlight, to ban this sort of parents' rights in the individual countries, because they can have a parliamentary vote, but the European Union Parliament couldn't pass any legislation in an individual country, right?
I just want to say one thing about this whole gate. You haven't actually demonstrated to me that the EU is against this. You've just said that there's a certain group, but you haven't provided me any legislation or certain politicians are against this. I don't.
I mean, like, I doesn't really need. Do I really have to prove that?
Yes.
I mean, like,
if you're making a claim, you need proof for that claim. Yes, I would enjoy that. That would be nice.
No, but I doesn't really have a proof for that specific claim. But if we argue that that's the case, because I know that's the case, but I don't know that it's.
How do you know that's the case if you have no proof?
I've read it plenty of times. I just can't find the proof right now.
Ooh.
To me, like if the EU, to me, like that just speaks more to my favor. If the EU Parliament is not willing to intervene in the country's own personal affairs, that the EU is not intervening that much of the sovereignty of each country.
So the EU cannot place. So I mean, like there's right that the European Union cannot put a law in place in another EU country, right?
Not without the permission of the EU Council and the EU Parliament. And it's normally not laws against specific countries. It's like a broad EU law. Like it's a legislation that most countries have to follow. Obviously, then each country can vary it. Because I know the Lisbon Treaty, Ireland was able to manifest. They were able to change it so they could have more opinion on sovereignty and other stuff like that, and borders. But yeah, like it's. I'm not honestly sure if the EU passed legislation to say, we want surrogacy. It would be up to how many countries vote for it.
Yeah, but doesn't all countries have to approve that?
Do all?
I have a question, guys.
Sorry, go
ahead. Can certain countries override the EU's law? Or can any country override their laws?
They can kind of negotiate like certain countries can change certain treaties so that it suits their country better. Ireland did this with the Lisbon Treaty. Like once the EU law is written, it's not like strict, if you get me. Like you can change it a bit so it suits your country a bit better. That's sort of it.
Basically it's not ironclad.
Yeah, it's not completely ironclad. Like I know the EU's been trying to. Actually, the EU Council's ministers. East Council ministers recently voted against open borders. So there's that as well. But yeah, it's not like if the EU proposes a law or wants a law, they have to send it to each national parliament, and the national parliament can change that law. And if enough parliaments say we don't like this law, or you have to change it. The EU will revise the law and change it again to see if it suits the parliaments, or they'll just reject the law outright and they won't propose it again. But of course, each individual parliament can change it, like, to suit the country better. That's what Ireland did with the Lisbon Treaty.
Yeah, and that's something that I accept. That was good. And I would, but if they have a law to ban it, if we say that they want to, even if I can't prove it, if you go with the point that they wanted to, and if majority of the countries wanted to, could they push that law on the entire European Union, or must it be approved by all single countries, every single one?
If 4 countries go against it, then I don't think it passes or it gets revised or something. So 4 countries would have to go against that legislation in the EU Council.
Just go against it.
Sorry?
If only 3 countries go against
4.
the legislation.
4.
But if there are less than 4 that goes against it, does it still get passed?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that's the problem with it. I mean, like, if we say that, like, Cyprus, Ireland, and not Malta, like Denmark, they wanted it to be no, bad example. Ireland, Malta, Belgium wanted it to be legal, and the rest of the European Parliament wanted it to be illegal. Couldn't the rest of the Parliament force that ban on the entire union, even though 3 countries didn't want to?
I'm not sure if maybe the individual parliaments could negotiate something. I'm not entirely sure. It tends to be kind of case by case with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's in my opinion too much of a risk. Therefore, I'm against it, because if even that's a possibility, I mean, like, I don't really think that we are going to, like, say, like, now I got this, now I'm right, or now I was wrong. Like, I mean, like, we're basically going to agree to disagree on most points. But that is one of my positions, that I'm opposed to being part of this union. Yeah, I mean, like, you get my point. If there is, like, if most countries wanted to ban me having more rights, then if they could do it, then that's enough for me to say I don't want to be part of this.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find anything on the EU on surrogacy, and I can't. Like, I can't speak on this without knowing anything.
But I mean, like, but if we argue, I mean, like, now I'm just arguing a possibility. If the EU wanted to ban it altogether, could they do that if it's in the entire all countries, even if 3 countries were against it?
I'm not sure. Like, it's not something. I'm not sure if the EU even has the power to do that. If it, like, that's a field it operates in. Like, I'm not entirely sure if that's a field that operates in. If it can merely just ask the individual countries to push a legislation for it, but I'm not sure if they could actually force the countries to do it.
Yeah, okay, then so they cannot force countries to ban it, for example.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Then we don't really know, and now we know that we don't know, and I believe that that's too much of a risk, in my opinion,
Okay.
because that means, I mean, like, that is my opinion, and that's one of my opinion to be against it. So therefore, I'm kind of, like, afraid of people doing that, and that I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid that could happen, and that's why I'm against it.
There's a Brussels conference on the surrogacy on the 23rd to the 24th, and it kind of seems to be pro it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And also, who?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you got it. I'd know that. Go ahead, Sid.
I was gonna ask. Never mind. I brain fart.
It's cool, dude.
But SIF doesn't have to ask us who to talk. He's the one. Sif, you're the one who decides who is allowed to talk or not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You guys are doing good. Unlike us Americans, you guys aren't like screaming at each other. Usually, we'd be yelling at each other if it was Americans.
Well, no, feel free to ask questions.
Yeah.
It lights up the conversation. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. I'm really enjoying this. I mean, like, it's. I mean, like, even if we don't agree on the entire point, we can agree on some points, and I really like to have these discussions because that makes it. It is great. I just like them.
Yeah.
And it's.
Oh, what I was gonna ask is, who has the biggest voices in the EU? Which countries do you guys think have the biggest voices?
Probably Germany and France and the UK, maybe. But yeah, they probably have the biggest voices.
All right. Well, because I know it was scary.
Well, it's not like actually would it be? No, it might be the presidency. I'm not entirely sure. Because like they might have the biggest voices and / figureheads the most involved, but they themselves can't push any like legislation by themselves. If you get me. Like they.
Oh yeah, that's.
Well, yeah, because it's all out of a parliament, correct?
Yeah, it has
which
to
is
be
no
parliament.
different than our, which is no different than our Congress, really.
Yeah, but if the, I mean, like, if there were going to be a ban, and the reason why I'm so afraid of that is because then I had to move anyway. And sorry, I'm just dropping my mind. I just forget what I'm supposed to say. Yeah, I mean, like the possibility that the entire EU could pass a legislation on the entire European Union, the countries' agreement, then I believe that even if that law would apply to those countries, then that will, in my opinion, violate the non-aggression principle, and that's why I don't. And if there's another issue, isn't this any issue that they could push another country? That will be a violation of the non-aggression principle.
Maybe I don't know. Like I think we should maybe move on from the surrogacy thing because we don't know like.
Yeah, I mean, like,
whether or not it's actually a thing or if it can happen. Like
but now.
Yeah, it just seems to something. If we disagree to disagree.
I mean, like now we're just arguing again, pushing legislation to the majority pushing legislation on all the countries, despite 3 countries not being allowed to not agreeing on that, regardless of what that legislation is. That still violates the non-aggression principle.
All right, so can you explain the non-aggression principle? I get the actual meaning, but where did that come from?
Oh, I can explain it. It's that what's it called? Oh, it's usually a libertarian position. Then you say that that you shouldn't force something upon an individual or a group of individuals that they opposes. So if a law, so if, for example, Kansas would like to itself and not distribute it to the entire U.S. and the United States government said that you have to share it to all the countries and you can't keep it within Kansas, then that might be a principle. Or if like you're saying like, oh, you have, and if like in communist Russia, oh, you have land, now we're seizing this land, this is going to belong to the state and not to the individuals, and that's also violates the non-aggression principle. And if you have a legislation, you are not allowed to smoke weed, and there is like a municipality or a nation said like, we want to smoke weed, and all the other countries said no, you can't smoke weed, even though that country very much want to do it, then that's violates the non-aggression principle. But letting someone,
okay, that's pretty simple.
But letting someone do something, making something legal that doesn't harm anyone, that's not necessarily a violation of the non-aggression principle, because that doesn't force the people to, that doesn't prevent the populace from doing something, or doesn't force them to do something.
Well, like I said, I don't know if the individual countries could like vote against it or be like have a change it. Like I don't know. I'm not good at hypotheticals like that, I guess.
And something else I'm been worrying about is that the many policies in the European Union want to push environmental legislation, which basically destroy the fishing industry of the UK. Because they were just allowed to fish up a number of fish, and then they couldn't bring home more than a certain number. So they have to throw back all the fish into the sea, and that just make the sea less healthy. Like
surely that's
they went overfishing.
Surely that's a problem with British farmers or British fishers not being able to fish properly, I guess. And it seems like a good thing to not want to diminish the fish stocks and such. Like thinking long term here, like you don't want, I'm sure it's actually, there's a case of fish being thrown out, but if you look at big picture, it probably more than likely reduced the amount of fish being taken out of the ocean in general, even if a few are wasted.
I believe that that's just more of a waste to me, because if you throw away eatable food into the ocean because of stupid legislation, and I don't believe that legislation is anything to have. I believe that legislation is shitty, and that's why I oppose it. That's one of the reasons why I was
dude, I'm talking about the waste is kind of irrelevant when it comes to say before you were fishing 100, you're fishing 100 fish, but now you can only fish 50. But now by accident you fish 55. You throw out 5, but you still have the 45 fish in the water that you wouldn't have got rid of, that they would have fished anyway. Yeah, it's a long-term conservation, which makes sense, because otherwise they would deplete the fish stock so quickly that now all these fishers are suddenly out of a job. I understand that the waste is an issue, but like any legislation, there's going to be pros and cons. And to me, the pro kind of outweighs the cons. And of course, the British fishers should maybe know when not to overfish.
Yeah, but I believe that is more cons, because it makes the fish more expensive in the UK, and it it actually lead to overfishing, because if you throw in fish in the water, then that's actually lead to overfishing, because then the water will be less of a good environment than it was before. I mean, like taking out 50 fish more is actually less, that you have less fish, and that's bad. But taking out 50 and then throwing 10, then you are basically overfishing even more, because throwing back fish just make the environment worse.
Yeah, but you've been mostly at the coastal areas for throwing out fish, and it's not going to be such a huge impact if you're throwing out a few fish, if compared to the fact that you're preserving larger amount of fish pods or schools, whatever.
Be this instead. If they took the overfished fish and gave it away to free for like to homeless shelters and all like that, or if they like push another legislation that said that you can only fish up to 50, and then if you have a little bit more than 50, you can keep them.
That is a law that is just open to be abused.
You crazy European.
But this current laws.
I mean, also it's also a good thing that the fishermen aren't just, increasing the supply. It means they can actually get a good price for their fish as well, which is a benefit to them.
Yeah, but it's not a benefit for the people.
Increasing.
I don't see it as a benefit for the individuals, nor for the fishers, nor for the environment. I only see that I don't see it as a benefit for all.
Well, it is a benefit for the environment, because there's more fish in the ocean. So what if 5 get thrown back in? You still have 45 extra. Also.
Yeah, but what if 45 throws back in? Then you're overfishing, and then more sea creatures might die because of it.
In that case, that's the fisherman's fault.
Yeah, but if you have a legislation that said you can only bring home 50, the better legislation would be that you can only sell fishes for price of 50. Then you have to give the rest fish away for free to zoos, to feed to seals or things like that, or to the homeless shelter or poor people. Or things like that, you get it. I mean, just to throw back is just it's just shit. It's better to just make the fish for free and not allow people to throw them back.
Yeah, but it's the problem that people are just gonna, dude. On paper that might work, but chances are the zoo is going to give the fishermen some money for that. Like, okay, here's £10 for that. We appreciate that. And now there's a profit incentive for the fishermen to do this.
Yeah, and I honestly, to be quite honest, I don't really see that problem with that.
Because you're overfishing the waters, dude. Like, how can you
overfishing if you throw them back? That's overfishing as well.
Yeah, but not to the same extent.
That depends on how much fish you're throwing back.
Dude, it's a fact. The stocks have gone up. The fish stocks have gone up.
Yeah, but I still don't think it's ethical because you are letting people who need food not having food because you're throwing their food right.
Food anywhere else. A fucking Big Mac is £2.
That's not what I'm talking about. Eating fish is more healthy than Big Mac.
Dude, carrots are like.
And if you want to have a market,
like,
I mean, like the fishermen
themselves about depleting the fish stocks just because you want to give some poor people free food. Like, yeah, that does not seem worth it to me. You can publicly fund better food for them. Like, donate £2 and we can feed 10 children for a week or whatever. Like, that seems a lot better than, depleting our oceans of fish. And since this policy was implemented, the fish schools have increased.
Yeah, okay, but then I see that it's not that much of a loss as I thought it was before. But I will still say that I don't think it's ethical, and I don't really like when countries, or for that case, bigger countries than that, are saying what other countries can and cannot do. They say, but companies can and cannot do. I believe that
we went over this with the legislation process. Free market.
What?
We went over this with the legislation process. The bigger countries can't just tell the smaller countries what to do or not. This is
but they can't do it if the countries that are opposed are less than 4.
Yeah, but also there's times when the treaties are taken by case by case basis with different countries.
Yeah, but I'm still opposed to the concept of enforcing your laws on a country that isn't your country.
It's not.
Well, I can see that. Similar to say if I live in New Mexico, right? I live in Albuquerque. Say if somebody from Utah wanted to push their laws on us, we would give them the middle finger and tell them, you don't get to tell us what to do. We're a different state.
Yeah. Well, there is that to
Yes.
a certain extent because you have the national parliaments that can be like, no, we have to change this. And if the law is shit enough, the chances are the national parliaments, a lot of them are going to vote against it. I mean, the EU's been trying to. The EU's been trying to push taxation legislation. Sorry, go ahead.
Continue. I'm sorry, Subjective. Go ahead, bro.
I'm just saying, like, the EU have been trying to get Ireland to increase their taxes on corporations, and like they just can't because they can't push the legislation for it. And this is one country, and they can't do it because the EU doesn't have that much of an overreach. Because Ireland negotiated. Yeah, because people just like fucking over exaggerate this impact and sovereignty the EU has.
Yeah, and I'm actually quite glad to hear that it doesn't have as much power as I thought they have. But I believe that the entire concept that they can push a law in a country onto the majority, and I believe that that's still tyranny of the majority. And if they can't do that, then what are the European Union
Well, there's a constitution, which means they can't violate certain principles just because the majority votes for it. That's the point. Like.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that too. Yeah. But can the country? I mean, sorry, I'm just losing the thread here. I mean, like, I believe that the countries or like a union shouldn't post legislation on companies, like I said before, or other countries, because I believe that the companies should be free to do what they want. And if people are finding out that the companies are not doing well, or like for example, or countries that aren't doing well, then they are going to vote against that. And companies that aren't doing well and people aren't going to buy their product. That's why I want the companies to not have any funding from the union or in the government of the of the independent nation, of the sovereign nation, and yeah, that's what I think. They believe that if you have the
sometimes
nation,
the company or the country needs to offer the company a profit incentive to provide a service in a place that otherwise wouldn't be profitable, like internet providing in rural areas. The Irish government subsidizes companies to go into these rural areas because otherwise it wouldn't be profitable.
okay,
Yeah,
I get that. That's again, but I would just say that that's one point, and then you can have it on certain companies. But I don't really think that that should apply to food distribution companies, because as long as it doesn't have a monopoly, then you can always choose to buy from another company.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want to push legislation about how you're much to fish or how you're much to grow, or what you should be allowed to do. I mean, like, the only legislation is that the
Let me
companies
break
should.
down the common agricultural policy. Okay, let's say 1 year you've wheat, and wheat becomes very profitable in the first year. Now, in the second year, all the farmers are going to going to want to grow wheat because it was profitable the year before. But now that all the farmers are growing wheat, the supply increases, the demand doesn't change, the price goes down, and now all the farmers are out of profit. So you
Okay.
need to regulate how the farmers grow things, or else they lose. You need to control the supply. So,
But some cases, if you come to farm, then yeah, I can understand why that would be okay. But I mean, like, not in every business that's necessary, and I want that not to be the case in business where it isn't necessary.
is it necessary to what, sorry?
When it's not necessary to legislate how business should do their business.
Sometimes it is necessary, though.
If there isn't, if there is, yeah, sometimes there might be not necessary, but a good idea. But when it's not, I don't think that they should be allowed to do that. I mean, like, you have make example of why that should be a good idea to do to farmers.
Mhm.
But when it comes to other places, and to the internet, but that's not always a good idea. It's always depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's what the common fishery policy and common agriculture policy are about. And they also give subsidies to fishermen and farmers. But yeah, so that they can
You
grow.
guys, you do a lot of fishing in Ireland?
Yeah, there's a good bit of an industry out in the west and on the Irish coast as well.
All right.
Yeah, it's mostly our main export is agriculture stuff. And we export a lot of that.
I guess Scottish. Sorry. Don't kill me.
It's alright, dude. I think I've spoken to you before. Were you ever hanging out with We Play DK? I'm pretty sure I remember you in a few streams.
Maybe.
But
I may have
maybe.
been there. I'm a stream whore.
Fair enough.
And that's why I wanted him to do this. He's used to being on stream.
I do want to go to Ireland. Where would you suggest to a fucking Yankee like me to go?
What are you looking for in Ireland? I mean, like,
Family, really.
Go to the West Coast. West Coast is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would say that Ireland is a very good country to start a family, because you have a very strict abortion laws, and that's something that I think is something I agree on.
Yeah.
And that is also something that a large number of people in the European Union and other European countries do not agree on. And if for example, other countries said that Ireland had to vote when it comes to legalize abortion, then I think that that's a risk for Ireland's right to not legalize abortion.
Yeah.
Oh.
Could we wrap this up
Yeah.
in like 20 minutes or so? Again, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one of my arguments, because I believe it's kind of scary that the European Union could push for abortion legislation across the board.
It could, but I don't
Or
see
like
any
ask.
or that happening. Can we wrap this up in like 15 minutes or so? Around that, just because. Yeah.
Can we say 20?
Yeah. Okay. 20.
But yeah, and that's something that I am quite worried about, because as I understand it, that the European Union could pass a vote for can the European Union tell Ireland that they should have a vote when it comes to abortion, or could the Irish government say no, we're not having it?
They could. Sorry, 1 second. I mean, they could like ask them to have a vote, but it wouldn't necessarily mean it would pass. Like, yeah.
But could the government prevent them from having that vote?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, yeah, if it was just like a directive, yeah, they'd have to pass legislation to make the government vote on it, which I doubt. It would just be like a directive, like the EU. Who would be the EU president, maybe, or someone in the parliament might be like, yeah, Ireland have a vote on this, and depending on the outcome, you know.
Okay.
Is
yeah, but
Ireland
something
still very Catholic?
Yeah, kind of, not insanely so, but most people are.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and something like, as I mentioned before with Mother, experiment like banning the thing I mentioned before was something called a progressive law. It's like legalizing abortion could also be good. It's also people like saying that that's a progressive law, even though I would be reacting against banning that and allowing the other, because that's not what I want. I don't want it to be legal. I don't want it to be legal. I'm not really pro-abortion, and I'm not pro-abortion like it is in the United States. I mean, like the United States are funding a Planned Parenthood. It's like butcher house, like terrible. It's just disgusting, and it's like funded by tax dollars. And the risk I see with the European Union in that could bring the same hellhole to Ireland, and I'm very, very afraid of that. And that's one of the reasons.
Well, the EU probably couldn't make Ireland vote or like do it. Really, I don't think that's probable.
Yeah, okay, I believe that's kind of relieving to hear, because the European Union being able to do something like that's just worrisome to me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, like the point I had before is that we doesn't really have some clear-cut, obvious answer for if the European Union could or couldn't push certain laws across the board that I would be against. And because some of these laws are framed as progressive laws, and many people in the European Union agrees with that, even though I don't. And then they can, and it's pushing certain laws on certain countries. It's not entirely impossible. And that's why I'm generally against it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think they could, but whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, you need both the heads of the state and the parliament to vote on it. I don't think that's very probable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, but I mean, like, that's great. But if the European Union wants a legislation, aren't they negotiating with the specific nation about the legislation?
You cut out there. You cut out.
Aren't the union discussing with the specific nation about how they will implement a law they want to implement? Would they like have a compromise or something? Or that's how it works?
The national parliaments could be like, oh, you have to change this, and if enough say they will, or even that they don't have to. Like, it could just be one country. They might negotiate something with them.
Yeah, and so, yeah. The risk I see with that is like a negotiation or meeting halfway. That could be a danger, because then you can, instead of just having this if entirely your way, no legislation at all, it could be a legislation that is like not as strong as the European Union's majority would like to, but like still a little legislation, and that, in my opinion, is enough for me to be worried about it.
Fair enough. I would need to see some proof that the EU is pushing towards that for me to have any cause for concern towards it.
No, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be a specific issue. But if you say pushing for anything in general, and if they like meeting halfway, then they can have a significant change in the independent country's law. Is that even possible?
If it's significant change, probably not. I don't know. Again, like, I mostly just know like the legislative process.
Okay. Yeah, but you do understand what my concerns are, right?
I understand that perfectly. I just don't see any reason for you to actually believe that the EU is pushing for this.
Yeah, but the possibility that they can't push for this, and I know that there are countries in the EU who are pushing this on other countries.
Which countries?
And I know that that's countries like France and Sweden and that have those legislations that want to, and there are strong voices within those countries that have been elected into European Parliament that want to push it on other countries. Even though,
Just because
and
an
I'm
individual
very,
country has it doesn't mean that they're going to want to push it on other countries.
but if I know that they want to push it on other countries,
But do you know that they want to?
yeah, I know that they want to push certain things to other countries.
Yeah,
but
but they want to push
but
this specific issue on other countries.
But if as I get it, they have to have the other countries' permission to push it on them, right?
Yes, yes.
But do they always need the popular vote, or can they just have a parliamentary vote to push it?
80% of the decisions need the council. Actually, it's even more. Most decisions now need the council and the parliament. I don't know of any decisions that have been passed with just one.
Yeah, and the council is the leading is the leader of the union, right?
Maybe, yeah. I can't remember, to be honest. I don't know the exact hierarchy of which it's more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen the hierarchy before, and it's like upside down, and it's and left and right, and then it's bigger than that and then. I mean, like it's such a complicated process, and that in itself is something that I see very worrying. Worrying. Sorry, I can't speak. But
Okay.
yeah, this is kind of funny because no, sorry, wasn't anything.
That's right.
But I'm sorry, I don't really know. Oh, it's not a guy in the chat.
I know the EU Council. It's like your 28 states, and then each one of those votes is dependent on whether you're kind of dependent on how much people are in your population. But I think what is it? I'd have to actually go to the breakdown of what it is. But there's 500 million. Yeah. Whatever.
This is very complicated issue, but something I see.
Yeah.
But something I said before, can the individual countries still have still allow people from the other European countries to come and work in their own countries?
Wait, sorry, say that again.
Is there a union market for work so that anyone from the entire union can apply for work and just go and work in another country?
Yeah, basically. But I think there's some limitations with if you have a criminal past and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I still have a little problem with that. If there is a country who has a large amount of unemployment and they can apply and employ people from union countries, then that, in my opinion, would be a problem because that's not benefiting the local population.
If there's large amounts of unemployment, chances are there's not a lot of job opportunities for immigrants. If you notice that when unemployment is low, there tends to be a high level of immigration. There's a reason for that. Immigrants aren't going to move to countries with high levels of unemployment.
Yeah, but if there goes money to I'm just forgetting what I'm about to say. I'm just so bad at this. If they're going money. No, if people are going to another EU country because they have a lot of jobs, wouldn't they be allowed? Wouldn't they would be able to underpay the locals if they're for a less wealthy EU country?
Yeah, but it helps if you have strong unions and laws when it comes to minimum wage. But they reckon in the UK, what was it? A 10% increase in immigration caused a 2% decrease in wages for low or working class workers. The real reason I think wages have fallen is because what is it again? In the UK anyway, it's because of the recession, the decline in trade union membership, increased labor market flexibility. So there's more 0-hour contracts and limited bargaining power of workers. There's increased inequality, and most of the share of the GDP growth is going to pensions and company profits rather than wages. So like the companies, when they make the profit, they put it towards like say the workers pensions or the profits, and there's a decline in the like productivity basically when it comes to people. So their companies tend to be changing to more companies are changing to more like machines basically do their work, and migration is part of it, but it's a small part of it. And most of the UK's immigration is from non-EU countries, and I think it's like 33% of all EU immigrants coming into the UK have a university degree. So
Yeah,
Also,
I can see that.
do you have to have a work visa if, say, you want to do like go to Spain and do some work? Do you have to get a work visa?
no, you don't need a work visa, but I think I'm actually not too sure. Maybe you would. I don't think you would need a visa because it's the EU, so you tend not to. But like if you were there for 3 months of benefits, they would be allowed to kick you out basically. Or if you're going there already sick, you have to pay for your own healthcare essentially. Like you can't just be a burden on their system.
Yeah, it's funny. I know a person. She got herself deported from Ireland because she had a work visa and it ran out. And like 3 months later, the Irish cops went and grabbed her, and they're like,
Where was she
"Yeah,
from?
she was from here in New
Oh,
Mexico,
okay.
but she was living in Glasgow."
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so. But that was
Yeah.
pretty funny. When she came back, she was like, "I got deported." I was like, "Good, serves you right, dumbass."
Get in my country, immigrant. Well, this is the laws I was explaining there. It's for EU citizens. That's not for. Yeah.
Yeah, but don't the EU citizens have the same opportunities like the citizens of the nation?
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah.
Don't the union members have the same opportunities as the nationals in the specific country?
Not really, because they don't have the same permanency of residence, and like I said, if they're already sick, they can't really, like the country has the right to kick them out, like if they're going to be a burden on the healthcare system.
Some countries in the European Union does not kick them out, and those countries are
a problem. Like, I mean, that's not something with the EU. Then that's national parliaments again.
Yeah, I know that that's not a problem with the EU,
No.
but the EU are still paying to some countries, like
yes, but they're
Greece
paying
and
the
something.
infrastructure. They're paying for the infrastructure of those countries. They're not really paying individuals. They're paying for the infrastructure and development of those countries, so then they become more self-sufficient, and that means less immigration from these countries, which is what everybody seems to want, but don't realize what that takes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's something that I think it's something good, because that means the current situation isn't that bad as
Yeah, it means people will
I
return.
sometimes think. Yeah. Sorry, but that means like if we are paying for a country's infrastructure, then that country could use the money they have left, then they will have more money left to pay for something else. So isn't it really that relevant to say what they are spending our money on?
It is very relevant. It's extremely relevant because one is an investment in the economy, and then others just giving it to the individuals for the sake of it. There is a huge difference.
Yeah, but but a country. So I get this right. You are paying for a certain country's infrastructure, but then they have more money to use money for their leftover money for something else.
They won't have leftover money because these countries have very shit infrastructure, so they're just going to be pouring money into this infrastructure. And that's like education, roads, and healthcare. Like that's not tends to be stuff you have money left over afterwards. Like this is shit that's pretty expensive.
It should be better that people who want wanted to pay for those infrastructures could, for example, build the roads, or, for example, do the things that the European Union are paying for, but they're
There's
doing
no
it out of
profit incentive to do so within that market there.
a profit for any type of charity, really.
There's no immediate profit for a company to do that, so they're not going to do it. Companies think in very short-term profits in general.
Yeah.
The EU
If we,
allows country to develop in the long term, which is what they're doing. And if you develop a country, say like Poland, which is the country I have in mind, it means you're going to have less Polish, like immigrants coming from Poland, say the UK, stealing our jobs, etc., etc.
Okay, I do have a question, Subjective. Sorry, Jay Willie, didn't mean to cut you off there. But I do have a question. Do you think that there is a problem with Islam immigration?
Yeah, but that's not really to do with the EU. That's more to do with Germany. And I saw the EU basically vote against open borders, and they're trying to implement the system in such a way that they can basically get rid of people who are not genuine refugees. And once you take in the certain amount of refugees that you were regarded that you're supposed to take in after the Dublin Convention, which was a few years ago, you can just kick out them if you want. Basically, you only have to take in a certain amount that will be proportionate to your country. So yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. I just had to ask you because you are pro-EU, and I know that sometimes there's a little bit of a problem with the Islam immigration.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not retarded. I don't think Islam is a good thing at all. Like, yeah.
No, clearly you're an intelligent man.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, but you're also Irish. That means that you have a tendency of drinking and being crazy.
Exactly. Hey.
Hey, but salute to that, bro. And I'm messed up because I'm half Spanish and half Irish, so I'm screwed.
Jesus, what the hell, dude?
Oh, that's interesting, because there are many of my family speak Spanish, and living in a country where Spanish is spoken, or somewhere else, and Fenian is Irish, so you are basically a perfect moderator because you have context to both our backgrounds. It was a joke, but it's kind of funny.
I'm screwed up in just every which way, and it doesn't matter. But no, and how that happened is my family, my Irish side came to Ellis Island back during the potato famine, and my Spanish side came up as conquistadors because, well, that's what Spanish people did.
So it's okay.
But that makes you more Hispanic than Spanish.
Is it okay if we wrap this up now, guys? Because I'm kind of tired.
Yeah, but we can say,
if you have any last questions or whatever, like yeah.
Just type your channel in chat if you do videos or whatever, and I'll follow.
Yeah, sure.
I believe something we can do is just to close off our individual position, without like challenging each other. You say what we stand for. So that I won't have a head start. Is that fine?
Yeah, sure. You go ahead, dude. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I'm just going to go over the point why I'm against it, and those points are because I'm afraid that they might push abortion legislation on countries that doesn't want to, and if you have abortion legislation and free movement, you can just have abortion in other countries, and think that's so good, and yeah, I'm not against all types of abortion, just the late ones that are allowed in certain countries. And if you're married, then I don't think that should be permitted. And it is if you have like no border. That's our problem. And another thing that if you can push legislation, regardless of what it is, if there's surrogacy ban or something, we went over that it's difficult for the European Union to do that, and I'm glad to hear that. But if they can't do it in any way, then that's worrying for me, and that's why I'm very worried about that. And well, something else that I'm against. Say yours, and then I can finish later if that's fine.
And Subjective?
Yeah, I think the EU is good because it allows smaller countries to have access to bigger markets, and I don't think the sovereignty issue is as big as everybody makes it out to be. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, and something else I just don't like is the open market, the global market. I'm not really in favor global market. I believe the same law more national market and global market only if there is a need for it, because they should serve the people first and foremost, and they should have their own free market instead of national corporations, because then your own corporations can challenge the multinational ones. And the reason why I'm also opposed to, I don't like then you have the refugee quotas, because then means that you have to spend people's tax money to take in refugees, and you're building up. Yeah, and I don't really like that, because I prefer to have prioritized refugee, because I believe that if you are doing it to help refugees, then that will be better than taking people's money who just want to get out of this place. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like it. Yeah, and I don't really want to pay for other countries' infrastructure. I mean, like, I'm basically egoist. But yeah, that's just my position. I just care about my own rights not being violated, and I want to have the marriage, as I said before, not being allowed to opt out of. And I don't really agree that you should have free movement and the in the union, and being able to push legislation and spend money on something that I don't really support. Yeah, that's basically
fair
it.
enough. Okay.
And also, you both had really fine points. Both of you were on point. It was great. It was fun hanging out with you, and I hope you guys have a good evening. I'm guessing it's evening in Europe right now.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys take care, and thanks. Like I said, I'm gonna jump on your channel, dude, and sub. So.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Oh, great.
Right on, you guys. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, you too.
But you have something. Yeah, you too. Have a nice time.
Okay, bye.